This is the Kupiansk direction. The Russians attempted an offensive with armored vehicles, and the Ukrainian military began to repel it. The first target was a Russian infantry fighting vehicle. 2 kamikaze drones were used to destroy it. The next attack took place on another infantry fighting vehicle. Then, Ukrainian drone operators began to destroy all other Russian armored personnel carriers. Here is a Russian T-80 tank, which also became a good target for Ukrainian drone pilots. Russian armored vehicles were successfully neutralized. Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spots 2 Russian T-80 tanks. Ukrainian drone pilots have already taken off to attack the enemy. After the drone hit, the tank was damaged but continued to move. To destroy it completely, another drone flew after it. After destroying the first tank, the drone pilots began to attack another tank. After 3 drone hits, another tank was also destroyed. Nikolsky village, buffer zone of the Ukrainian military in the Kursk region. Russian troops are trying to break through the Ukrainian defense. Ukrainian infantrymen engage in combat attacking an enemy column with javelins. Russian tank armor cannot withstand such hits, and the tanks are blown to pieces. Russian armor turned into hot metal. But despite the destroyed tanks, the Russians continue their offensive mission. Ukrainian infantrymen, in turn, also continue to attack the enemy with javelins. Another precise hit, and the tank becomes a stationary target. Over time, the fire engulfs the tank more and more until it burns completely. When more Russian tanks appear on the horizon, Ukrainian infantry seize the moment to destroy a few more using handheld anti-tank missile systems. As we can see from these footage, American weapons easily penetrate Russian armor. To cover the infantry, a nearby Ukrainian drone unit arrived to assist, and they also began attacking the enemy. The first wave of the offensive was stopped, then Ukrainian kamikaze drone operators began to search for infantry hiding in the woods. After the first wave, the Russians began to attack from the other side, and Ukrainian kamikaze drones began to meet the enemy. When all the Russian armored vehicles were destroyed, Ukrainian bombers arrived and began clearing the forest of Russian infantrymen. Russian attack was stopped, armored vehicles were successfully destroyed. And here, the Russians are towing another cannon with a truck. They have no idea that a reconnaissance drone is currently watching them. Meanwhile, the Russians have already found an ambush spot, which they consider a good position for the cannon, along with a full truck of ammunition and shells for it. Most likely, they were planning to settle there for a long time. But Ukrainian drone operators think otherwise. A kamikaze drone is already on its way to destroy its target. The Russians are slowly starting to hear the sound of the approaching drone and begin firing back with rifles. Sometimes, they even manage to hit it, forcing the Ukrainian operators to try again. But not this time. The drone successfully reaches the target and hits the cannon. The Russians who tried to shoot down the drone are now scattering in different directions, and the spot where the ambush was supposed to be is now engulfed in flames. Now both the cannon and the truck loaded with ammunition have been completely burned to ashes. And here is a Russian tank that failed to make it through the road of death. Now we can see a Ukrainian Thermite drone in action. It lands on the tank and burns through its armor in just 7 to 9 seconds. The view from the observer drone shows the action. The ignition temperature of Thermite ranges from 2,300 to 2,700 degrees Celsius. And this is what the tank looks like after a few minutes of burning. Another Russian tank, this time well camouflaged. However, its camouflage is not a problem for Ukrainian pilots. A kamikaze drone is on its way to destroy it. The picture is quite bad due to the electronic warfare system, but this is not a problem for the pilot, and he successfully carries out the attack. The Russians tried once again to shoot down the drone, but once again they failed. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian operators launch another drone to check the accuracy of the strike and, if necessary, deliver the final blow. Now it's clear that the tank won't be going anywhere. It's burning from the inside, and this will ultimately destroy it. And here's another attempt to break through by Russian troops in the Kursk region near the village of Kruglenka. A Russian tank and an armored personnel carrier with infantry heading for the assault. A tank hits a mine, but the armored personnel carrier continues to move and even disembarks infantry. Immediately after receiving the coordinates, Ukrainian artillery began shelling enemy positions. Artillery destroyed a Russian armored personnel carrier with a precise hit. Russian infantrymen tried to hide between the trees, but it was all in vain. There is no hiding from Ukrainian bomber drones. And this is the Kharkiv region, the sovereign territory of Ukraine. Ukrainian drone pilots destroyed a Russian vehicle used to transport ammunition and weapons. Then, an MTLB with Russian infantry was attacked and was on its way to assault. It is clearly visible that after the hit, the Russian infantrymen leave the armored vehicle and flee, while the Ukrainian pilots of the bomber drone finally destroy the armored vehicle. And here's another Russian Bukanka, but this one has been modified to carry Russian infantry. A kamikaze drone hits it and it bursts into flames. After some time, the Bukanka explodes and metal fragments fly off in all directions. Here, Russian troops on tanks and armored vehicles tried to advance in the Kharkiv region, but Ukrainian kamikaze drones engaged them in battle and began halting the Russian offensive. As seen in this footage, Russian troops added extra metal plates to their tanks to protect them from drone attacks. Ukrainian soldiers refer to these tanks as tortoises. However, Ukrainian drone operators continued to destroy even these reinforced tanks. And here is another Russian assault in the Tetk sector. Russians tried to break through Ukrainian positions with 5 infantry fighting vehicles. Drone operators and artillerymen of the Azov Brigade engaged in battle with the Russian occupiers. After the drone strike, one of the infantry fighting vehicles came to a stop. Russian infantry began disembarking and fleeing from it. At the same time, Ukrainian kamikaze drone pilots continued to attack the Russian assault column. Some Russian soldiers tried to shoot down kamikaze drones by shooting at them. Here we can see one of the armored personnel carriers deploying smoke cover to prevent the kamikaze drone from delivering an accurate strike. However, it was in vain. One infantry fighting vehicle managed to get to the ruins of the village and dropped off the infantrymen. The Russians quickly began to hide in one of the houses. Meanwhile, Ukrainian pilots destroyed their combat vehicle using a bomber drone. The Ukrainian reconnaissance drone also transmitted coordinates to the artillery where the Russians were hiding. The artillery opened fire and started shelling the enemy sector. Bomber drone operators also dropped bombs on the positions of the Russian occupiers. Some of the Russian soldiers thought they could hide, but they were constantly being watched by reconnaissance drone. Here, Russian combat vehicles are engulfed in flames. Russian armored vehicles were destroyed. The Russian assault operation failed. Ukrainian military managed to stop the assault. Here, Ukrainian kamikaze drone pilots attack Russian dugouts and Russian heavy armored vehicles. Here's a Russian armored personnel carrier that hit a mine and is now damaged. Ukrainian pilots are destroying it so that the Russians do not tow it away and repair it. Here, a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted a change in the location of Russian troops. Ukrainian kamikaze drones immediately began attacking them. And here is a Russian T-80 tank. It too will not make it to the battlefield. This is the Kharkiv region, Kupiansk sector. Russian occupiers are attempting to seize new territories. Ukrainian forces engaged in battle and began destroying Russian armored vehicles. That's all for today, friends. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon. That's all for today, friends. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with the latest news. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.